Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Matthews, and I'm joined with my friend in the pump industry, Greg Case. He has been on the podcast many times before, and so you should know him, but it's he's doing so much in the space, and I'm just so glad to get to talk to him. But Greg, jump on here and introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are already.
All right. My name's Greg Case, and I am the Chief Innovation Officer for Taco Inc., which we're primarily a large HVAC pump supplier, tank supplier, heat exchangers, valves, etc. But we also play in several other spaces. We have vertical turbines. We're global. So um, my job as Chief Innovation Officer is to look out the 5 to 10 year plan for us, and so this data center topic is definitely a now topic, but it continues to grow and continues to build, and I hear a lot of buzz about it. So I thought it'd be great to talk to you about it and your audience.
Yeah, and I just dove into that a little bit at Accelerate. It was wonderful to talk about all the different innovations that are out there and how fast we're moving. And so I think that, I mean, you would have loved it, first of all, Greg, but
Yeah.
also like being in the pump industry and being part of the Hydraulic Institute that's looking at things in where we're going as kind of a collective group. It's nice to just talk about it too. So from the leaders of TACO, Greg and I are going to talk a little bit about these data centers. And I think it's such an opportunity. And so
I
I'm
agree.
I'm just so curious, Greg, what you think about it? And I know y'all all know that we wouldn't be talking about it if there wasn't an opportunity there. So, but what have you been hearing?
So it's an interesting, I think data centers have always been a great client for Taco. We've always been building HVAC, and so we've always been part of that. In the past, it used to be there was a server room in a building. These data centers are now the server room is the building, and so the market has changed drastically as these have been building. And I did a little bit of research on this using somebody's data centers. Um, so I have to say that as I'm on a couple different boards, I listen to what people are talking about and what they want to get into, and everybody's, oh, I want to get into the data center market. So I get a little nervous with that because obviously Taco is trying to get into the data center market or stay in the data center market. And how big is this? What are we looking at? And so I've got some numbers that won't make any sense to you. Probably they didn't to me. So $226 billion in construction in data centers in 2024. That means nothing to me. That's so big of a number, I can't even fathom it. So to put that in perspective, I like percentages. And so that's 12% of the total construction in the United States last year.
Yeah,
That
and
is
that's what
a
I've been hearing too,
lot.
around the same, no,
Yeah,
10%. Yeah, so that's right in line.
that's a big number. That's huge. I mean, I drive around San Antonio where I live, and all the freeway construction, all the overpasses, all of that stuff. And that's not even close to what this market is doing. Another number that I had for this was in 2024, they used 4.4% of the total electricity generated in the United States. So again, doesn't mean anything to me. I can't fathom that number. So there are only 4 states that used more electricity than that. So California, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Texas. There are only 4 states that use that much energy.
Yeah, and those are some pretty big states.
I mean, that's amazing. So my conclusion uh, is there a place for everyone to play? Absolutely. And when we talk about data center construction, we're talking about the data center itself. We're not talking about the power plants that are being put up for this. We're not talking about the water infrastructure being put up for this, the roads, freeways, everything else that are being put up for this. So the ability for this market, for people to play in this market, is absolutely amazing. And I can't believe the staggering numbers I'm looking at as I dig a little further into this.
Yeah,
I
and
really
I
think
love that you mentioned that because we can't we need to get into the information and the connections with everybody who is actually working on these projects because of the infrastructure behind supporting them. Yes, we need to make sure that, the data center itself is cooled,
yep,
but there's going to be workers there. There's going to be, other things that we need to look at and where are they going to be and
yeah,
how is that going to affect our daily lives, right? Which is
absolutely.
what HVAC conversation is all about, reliability and culture
Yep.
and our comfort, right?
Yeah, and I my dad was the chief information officer for large companies throughout his career, and I remember going to the server rooms, and everybody was in a winter jacket, and they had gloves on, and they're typing away in the server room there. And those days went away a few years ago when we changed how we cool these pieces of equipment. Instead of, oh, we're going to chill this whole room down to 50 degrees, um, they started chilling the servers alone because they just couldn't get enough cooling to these things. And that continues to build, and the innovation that these people are putting into, I've got faster chips, I've got AI, I've got all of these all of this data requests. I mean, until somebody bans these, we are going to continue to use more and more data. For this conversation with you, Charli, I mean, I hit Siri up about 5 or 6 times. I hit Google up multiple times. So the data need is not going to go away. And so one of my colleagues asked uh, in a recent board meeting, is this a bubble? And at the time, I answered him incorrectly because I said no. And it is a bubble. It can't continue at the rate that we're at right now. There's no way it can continue at that rate forever, but I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So if you're running a company that is looking at investments in the data center space, I don't think that you're going to see that the rate of change go down quickly there. It's going to taper off, but unless the Terminator piece takes over, it's not going to
Yeah,
not
well,
going
I was thinking
to.
about this because when we'd always talk about things being vital to life, water, energy, etc., right? This is vital to life. Like how if it goes out, what are we doing? We
Yeah,
can't even get
yeah, yeah,
around. We have gotten so dependent on it. And that's a good thing that we have these tools and everything, but we have to support it. Just like we have to take care of our water, we have to
yeah,
take care of these and figure out how it's all going to work together, how the power grid is going to work together with these centers, where they're going to be located for efficiency. So much there. And so, as we dive into this, thankfully, there's been a group of thought leaders coming together and putting together a conference so people can talk to each other. So, I know that you're going to be there at Data Center World with this topic, and I love this simplicity. So, tell us how you're going to go about that.
yeah. So my presentation is one of the spaces that Takeo plays in right now is called thermal energy storage. And so one of the things with a data center that is huge, like 40% of the operating budget could go to cooling in the operation of a data center. With water cooling, 10 to 15% is more likely. So much more efficient to do it with water. Just want to make that point. Um, we have some things that we can do for peak load shedding and trying to uh, recover from disasters. So a lot of what Takeo does is we have tanks that are full of chilled water, and they are stratified. That water is stratified in the tank. If the power goes out, the whole tank is full of chilled water to begin with. And as it draws down in a very controlled thermocline, a straight line across the tank. and that allows us to provide cooling to the data center until the chillers can come back up online and start to produce cold water again. So it is an emergency backup technique. But this same technology gets used every day by these folks. They have 100,000-gallon tanks that are full of chilled water that they slowly draw down in a peak load shedding or energy saving mode. They make ice overnight, and they use the flow through the ice tanks to be able to shed load at peak hours. There's ice is a phase change material, but there are much more complex phase change materials out there that allow you to keep temperatures at a constant temperature for a long period of time. And so there's a lot of work in that field being done for data centers to be able to keep cooling costs down, to be able to support these with lower amounts of water. So it's a very dynamic field right now. There's a lot of learning going on. Till just a few years ago, it was all done with air, and now we've got the data center guys are innovating. There's technology that I saw 15 years ago in the military now being used for these data centers. We're actually immersing the board, the entire circuit board, in a fluid to keep it cool. They're using spray evaporative cooling to keep the boards cool. So space stuff that was DoD proprietary information has now moved its way into the commercial space. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest thing about that is that we were talking about like technology, electricity, components that don't like water and fluid, and to be able to use that now in that space, it takes technology to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of very smart folks working on ways to get around. I mean, if I go back a little bit and I go to the challenges that the data centers are having, their biggest challenge, if you ask them, is they can't put them up fast enough. They simply cannot stand up the buildings. I heard the other day from a chiller manufacturer in Europe that they're out 3 years in being able to produce chillers. So, I can't supply you a chiller. If you come to me with a purchase order today, you're not going to get it for 36 months.
Just wow. I mean, that in itself is just how do
Yeah,
you grow, how do you keep up with the growth that is happening?
yeah,
If we're not working all together too, to be able to do that. So there's a lot of communication that's going to have to happen.
yeah. We talked about the electrical usage. That's, you've got Microsoft talking about bringing on nuclear power plants, putting new nuclear power plants online. I mean, we did a job for a company earlier this year. They built a gigawatt power plant simply for their data center. The infrastructure side of this is crazy. And then we keep building these things in water scarce regions because that's close to the trunk line for the internet. And so obviously there's challenges there that have to be overcome, and we're going to have to put these in different locations. And there's a lot of security threats to that. I mean, this is people's data. This is precious. And who knows whose data it is. So those kind of things are very important for where you put these centers. But I think one of the black eyes that this industry has is all of this energy use and all of this water use and all of those things. And they've got to find a way to reuse that energy. I mean, you're using a gigawatt of power to drive this. They're using 4.4% of the nation's energy. How do you recover that? And I think the hydronics industry has some very interesting ways to do that. And if we started to co-locate data centers with other infrastructure, you could heat the entire block with what's coming off of these, or probably the entire city with what's coming off these power plants. or are these data centers. So really interesting. There's got to be a little bit more of a symbiotic relationship instead of we're going to build a data center over there and the rest of the world's over here.
Yeah,
So
y'all figure it out. No,
yeah,
it's not going to work.
yeah.
Have, but I like the idea of that of being able to kind of talk to a community and see where is the best way to set up all the different factories or systems. And it's like a lot of change. It seems like a lot of change, which will terrify people in the beginning.
Well, it's so as I talked about the security aspect of this, as you get into this group of it's a very small, tight knit group, and they don't want you to know where these things are. They want to keep them secret. They want to keep them safe. And so we're gonna build this data center, and we want to put it away from a community, and we're saying, hey, for all that energy reuse, you're gonna have to put it in a community, and people are gonna have to know that that building with no windows is a data center. Um,
Yeah,
so
and we need it to work, and we need it to have
yeah,
the security that and all of the things, right? That was going to make
yep,
it successful. So, not that we can't do it, and we're it's going to have to happen. That's what it sounds like. There's no way to kind of continue to grow without the infrastructure to support it. So, what is this if somebody's trying to get involved in this, right? And kind of that first step, or what is it that people can do? I think based on what you did, a lot of research for one.
well, I think data center world. I went a year ago or 2 years ago, and really opened my eyes. I know that one of my competitors was there, a longtime friend, and he came over to me and said, "Wow, there's an amazing opportunity here," and there absolutely is an amazing opportunity, but it's not just the data center building itself, it's everything that's going to come around that, all of the power plant, and as we talked about, the infrastructure side. So I think there's a place to play for everyone in this space. And I mean, they are driving 10%, 12% of the construction budget for the country. That's an incredible amount of space. So, or an incredible amount of money that's going into this. So, a lot of space for companies to play in, I guess, is where I was going with that.
Yeah, and thankfully, we've got some leaders here taking advantage of that and getting in the know. One thing that we, think about when we are starting, kind of going into a new industry, is that, who are we going to work with? So y'all, if you're thinking about it or just wanting to discover it, y'all go to Data Center World. It's in DC, which
Yep.
again, there's a reason to go to DC at any time, right?
April 14th through the 17th, I believe. So,
Yes, just around the corner. But making sure that we get that group together to have the conversations to see where this is going to lead us within, of course, the pump industry, but also beyond. I love talking about things like AI and how that's going to speed up this process. And so we need to be paying attention. And so it wasn't new, just like all these digital technologies are not new, but it's moving at a fast rate, and we need to get people on board so we can standardize some of this as we move forward. Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, Greg, is there anything else that you wanted to leave our listeners with?
I think I've dumped enough facts for now.
All right, sounds great. I look
Thank you.
forward to the next time I see you. And for everybody else, share this episode. This is what we need to be talking about. So go ahead and share it with a friend, and hopefully, Greg is just going to have a line of people there to come and watch his presentation. Y'all give him a hard time. All right, I'll see you next time. Be empowering.
Thanks. Okay.